What is up, guys? So this is part 10 of the scripting tutorial series. So today we're going to be going over data stores, which we can use to save the player's data with. So before we start saving the player's data, go to your game settings, security, and make sure enable studio access to API services enabled. Otherwise, you will just get a warning and data source won't work. So after you enable that, personally, I just made a simple leader set script. So I have coins and levels, and I have two buttons, one which gives me coins and one which gives me levels. So yeah, right now the data won't save because I haven't scripted it. So let's get started. So I'm just going to make a script and I'm going to name it DataStore. So first off, you want to make a variable for the DataStoreService, so we can access all of the DataStore functions. Equals game get service DataStoreService. People often call this variable DSS. Yeah, they just abbreviate it. I think that's the right word for it. So after we got our DataStoreService, we want to get our actual data store. So yeah, I'm gonna quickly type it out and then explain it a bit. So DataStoreService get data store. So this is pretty much where all of our users' info will be stored. And to get a data store, we just reference our DataStoreService and we get the data store. You also need to give it a name. So for this one, I'm just going to do like tutorial. Here we go, tutorial 1. Because I think I've already used this data store name. I'm not too sure. Actually, I'll do like tutorial 6 just in case. So yeah, this is your name. It can be, the maximum length of the name can be 50 letters if I remember correctly. I'll look at the limits later on. Don't worry about this right now. So after you have your data store, make 2 events. One of the events will be for detecting when a player joins and the other will be detecting when a player leaves. So game get service players, player added, connect function, and with the parameter of the player. Let's copy this and make another one, but it's going to be player removing. There we go. So let's start off by saving the data, and afterwards we can load the data. So to save the data, first off, let's make a variable for the data that we are going to want to save. So local data. And so in this case, let's save the player's coins. Equals player dot leader stats dot coins dot value. So data stores can only store values. They can't store instances. So I can't just store the whole number instance. I can only save the value. So this is my leader stats script as well. So I'm going to save coins. Coins.value. And after you have your data declared, you want to actually save the data. So you want to set the data inside the data store. So to do that, you reference your data store. So data store. Then you want to set the data. So set async. And this requires 2 arguments, one of them being the key. So this is the key that you're going to need to access the data afterwards. So you want to use the player's user ID, because the player can never change their user ID, which means that this is like a permanent key to the data. If you use the player's name, they can change the name and lose their data. So yeah, player.userid, and the value is going to be the value that's going to get saved. So data. Now this will actually already save the player's data, but we also need to load it to see it happen. So let's load the data now. First off, make a variable named data, like here. Leave it empty, just declare it, because we're going to be using a p call to get the player's data. That's because it's possible for Roblox servers to be down, and when you try to get the data, it will error. So if you don't know how p-calls work, I made a tutorial on them last episode. So let's make a p-call real quick. So local success error message equals p-call function. There we go. So now let's set the data to whatever we get from the data source. So we need to get the data from the data store. So to do that, we do DataStore get async, and like before, we use the key to like access the data. So you need to use this key to access the data. So pretty much we just use the player.userid here to access the player's data. So this will actually get the data, but to make sure that the p-call was successful and there is data, we're going to be using if statements. So first off, make a if success, then, and then if data, then. Now in the success one, I usually recommend making an else statement as well. So if we didn't get the data successfully, then just warn error message. Yeah. So if it didn't successfully get the data, then it will tell us why. But if it did get the data and there is data, then we can load the player's data. So player.leader stats.coins.value equals data. Because remember, we set the data to the player's coins values, and when we're loading that data, it gets set to the value that we saved. So, sorry about that. So now the player's data will be set, but here's why I didn't combine if success and data. That's because if it's the player's first time joining and the DataStore successfully gets the data, then data will still be set to nil. So if we type out else here, then pretty much what we can do is say that it's the player's first time joining. So this is how we could, for example, make a tutorial. So player's first time joining. Yeah. I'll quickly show off that it works, and then I'll explain the entire script. So it's my first time joining. Let's get some coins. Then leave. Make sure to leave through the menu. Leave. Play. And as you can see, my coins saved. So I'll quickly explain this script once again, and then I'll show you how to store multiple values. So first off, we have our two variables, DataStoreService and then the DataStore. So we're getting our DataStore from the DataStoreService. I forgot, but DataStore is often named DS. So then we made two events, one for when the player joins the game and one for when the player leaves the game. So when the player leaves the game, we're making a variable which we will store our data in, and then we're accessing our data store and we're setting the data to the data store. So yeah, we're setting data to the data store with a key of the player's user ID. So when a player joins the game, we're making an empty variable called data. Then we're using a p-call to get the player's data using their user ID. And if we successfully get the data and there is data, then we're setting the player's coins to the data. But if it's successful and there is no data, then we can confirm that it's the player's first time playing the game. If the p-call wasn't successful, then we'll just warn the game about what happened. So yeah, this is a simple data store script. I'm quickly going to showing you how to store multiple values. So to do that, you want to store your data in a table. So yeah, DataStore can actually hold tables, and I pretty much just put my coins in a table. but we can also add our levels in the table now. So player.leader stats.level.value. Yeah, we're saving a table with 2 values. Now we also need to change this, because right now we're just trying to set the coins to data, but this will error because we're pretty much trying to set the coins to a table. So let's set this to data 1, because coins is the first key of the data table. And we can pretty much copy it to do the same level, but change the key to 2. Now, if I play the game, it will actually error, because right now I still have the old single value stored, so it will try to set the coins value to the first index of a number. It's hard to explain, but yeah, pretty much it will error. But now if I just get some data, leave the game and join back, it will work just fine. Okay, or not, looks like I messed something up. Them to index number with number. Value. No, it should work fine. Play it one more time. Okay, yeah, I think it will work now. Leave the game. Play. Yeah, it saved. So, yeah. It was trying to access like so I'll quickly make a comment here. So pretty much our data was set to like 10, and we were trying to set the player's coins to data 1, and as you can see, it makes no sense. So yeah, usually to avoid that, you just change the data store name, but this will also wipe all of the player's data, because we're setting it to a new data store which doesn't have any data stored on it. So yeah, that's pretty much the basics of data stores. I might make another video which goes more in depth, like maybe I'll show you data store update async. But for this video, this is pretty much it. There's also a plugin that's really useful called DataStore Editor. It does cost Robux, but it's worth it in my opinion. So pretty much what this plugin does is you can visualize the data stores. So I can connect to my data store, which was it was like tutorial 6, right? Tutorial 6. Then I can connect to it, and I can list the keys. So this is my user ID right here. If I click on it, I can see the data, I can see the type of data, and I can see what data is stored in here. And I can also change it. So this will be my coins, and then I can save it, and if I play the game, it will actually save my coins to like 10,000, as you can see. So yeah, it's a really helpful plugin. There's also one last thing that I have to show you. It's DataStore Limits. So I'll quickly load the documentation up. So here are the DataStore Limits. So pretty much, as you can see here, you can only use get async, and you can make this amount of requests per minute. So 60 plus the number of players plus, times 10. So if you go over this limit, then your requests are placed into one of the 4 queues: set, order set, get, and order get. Requests in a queue are handled in the order they are received, and you can read this if you want. So yeah, those are the limits. Here are the other limits. So your data store name can only be 50 letters, your key name can only be 50 letters, and your scope can only be 50 letters. I didn't explain what scopes are, but I might make it into another video. And here's your data. Your data can only store like 4 million bytes. So if I go to my DataStore editor, I go to tutorial 6, list keys. This will actually show me how many bytes my data is using. So currently it's 9 bytes. But yeah, that's it for this video pretty much. Very simple concept in my opinion. Also, here's the script for the buttons, if you were wondering. There's going to be no daily challenge for this because, I mean, there really isn't any daily challenge to do because it's just saving data. But yeah, in the next video we'll be going over something really cool called lerping and tweening. So yeah, I'll see you in part 11. Goodbye.